The Algorithm of Truth, a legal chronicle by Rhonda Merrick with AI editing. Dedicated to anyone who has ever stood in a courtroom without a lawyer and still managed to speak the truth clearly enough to be heard. Chapter 1. Equation. They say justice is blind, but in my experience, it's more like a temperamental algorithm. Beautiful in theory, impossible in practice, and designed for people who think they understand fairness because they can spell it. Before all this, I was a data analyst, not a lawyer, not an activist, certainly not a threat to the city of Denver. I was the kind of person who loved long spreadsheets and quiet mornings. Coffee, headphones, and a wall of monitors blinking in structured harmony. So it still feels absurd when I think about the morning the police burst through my door and announced I was under arrest for data theft. Me. The person who spent an entire weekend color-coding a grocery budget. Apparently, organization is the new crime. Before we move on to what happens next, subscribe to the channel, or better yet, visit RhondaAtTheFrontDesk.com newsletter. You'll always find exactly what you want to watch when you ask at the front desk. Now back to the story. Chapter 2, The Arrest. It was cold, mid-January, the kind of day where the air itself hurts. I'd been up since dawn debugging a government expenditure report that had gone missing from the Open Data Archive. One link was broken, 1,000 rows of public spending gone. My project wasn't even political, it was academic. I'd been collaborating with an online transparency forum, trying to reconstruct what the city should have never hidden: taxpayer expenditures on contractual efficiency studies. That phrase alone smelled like corruption. By sunrise, I'd cross-referenced all 800,000 data points using archive backups. The numbers told a story of their own, a story of inflated contracts, disappearing accounts, and administrative signatures that didn't match. I should have known I was in trouble when the backup server started glitching right after I published the trend lines. By noon, the knock came. No, not a knock. A battering ram of policy and protocol. 2 officers in gray tactical jackets stepped in, calm as mathematicians, reading me my rights as if we were discussing the weather. I was too stunned to protest. I let them confiscate my drives, my laptop, even my external monitor. "Can I ask what's going on?" I finally said. "Illegal access to restricted government data," the taller one said. "Restricted? It was public." He looked at me almost kindly. "Not anymore." And that was that. As they led me out, I caught my reflection in the microwave door, pale, shaking, still wearing my wired headset. I looked exactly like what every algorithm warned them to fear: a solitary person who knew too much about systems. Chapter 3. The System's Welcome. 3 nights in detention. No harm, no cruelty, just bureaucracy. Endless questions asked by people who did not understand my answers. When I finally met my public defender, a man named Wiggins, he looked more exhausted than accused criminals. "We'll plead this down," he said, loosening his tie. "Get your probation, maybe." I blinked. "What are you talking about? I didn't commit a crime." He sighed. rifling through my file. You used unauthorized credentials. They were open credentials archived through the Federal Transparency API. Yeah, you should probably not say that again in court. That was my first lesson. Truth does not scale as efficiently as lies. I asked him to challenge the arrest. He said, "Do you really want to go up against the city without counsel?" I said, "What do you call you?" He didn't laugh. Then he had me fill out a form and realized I had a job and didn't qualify for a public defender. I barely earned enough to pay rent and groceries, but apparently the little I earned was too much to qualify for free legal assistance, and there's no such thing as sliding scale based on low income instead of pretty much no income. I had no money for a lawyer. So I took a deep breath to steady myself, because whether I wanted to or not, I was going to have to represent myself. You won't want to miss what happens next. Send a comment telling us where you are in the world. What time is it where you are? Right now. Tell us what you liked and maybe what you'd like to see happen. Now back to the story. Chapter 4. The Ballet of Bureaucracy. Courthouses have their own choreography. You can feel it, the rhythm of hurried footsteps, the click of files closing, whispers like static. I started coming every morning to watch not the trials themselves, but the process before the trials. I sat on benches pretending to read while actually listening to lawyers negotiate with prosecutors. Let's take the deal. You get 2 years max. No sense fighting something you can't afford. Those defense lawyers would whisper in hushed, important tones to their anxious clients. The phrase "can't afford" repeated like a drumbeat through those marble halls. That's when I saw it, the real algorithm. Running the justice system wasn't written in codes or statutes, it was economics. Every case was data. Every defendant was a unit of processing cost. The easiest way to maintain legal efficiency was to make people too tired or too poor to fight back. So I decided to reverse engineer the process itself. Chapter 5. The Legal Justification Form. If truth couldn't win, maybe irony could. I designed a form. The Legal Justification Form. Part exam, part rhetorical trap. At the top, a true-false section written to expose contradictions. For example, true or false? Accessing publicly archived data constitutes theft. True or false? Data labeled as open source becomes restricted upon discovery of a crime by those in power or simple inefficiency. Beneath that, I added short answer questions. Explain how knowledge can be criminal if government transparency is a stated goal. And in my final essay prompt, I wrote, describe how accountability differs from insubordination when the accused is correct. I attached it to my pretrial motion. The prosecution laughed. They just laughed until the judge approved it for the record. Chapter 6. Courthouse logic. My first appearance in Judge Vance's courtroom felt like walking into a chessboard. He's the kind of man who looked like he'd been carved from courtroom wood. Polite, strict, deliberately neutral. Prosecutor Marson stood across from me, clean-cut, caffeine-sharp, the kind who quotes regulations like scripture. He presented my crime as reckless sabotage of city servers. When I asked to show evidence that the data was public, he objected. Objection, Your Honor. But Vance allowed me to respond. The objection proves the point. If the data wasn't public, how did journalists cite that same data before I even accessed it? The room buzzed. Journalists actually were in the gallery that day, sniffing something interesting. Marson flushed. Your behavior endangered city operations. So did theirs, I replied. They misfiled public accounts. All I did was put them in order so everyone could read them correctly. Even the judge couldn't hide his smirk. And on it went from there. The legal justification form, the idea of holding those in authority accountable. Is it true that public information is supposed to be public? And if that's true, then could you please give the legal justification for charging me with a crime for making public information that was incorrectly filed still public, but retrieving those files that were allegedly accidentally lost and showing the public what actually happened with public funds? How do you think that went in court? This was Rhonda at the front desk. Come and ask for whatever you're looking for. Romance, mafia stories, werewolves. We got rougarous in the south, shifters in the north. You name it, it's in there. Come to the front desk and let us know what you want. Tell us how you like this story. The idea of a legal justification form created by an ordinary person standing up to authority and holding them accountable for what they did.